for projects, all of a sudden when you see what's happening, there's streets being dug up, there's excavation work and whatnot, and that's all happening. But yeah, the piece before that, and typically it's a very long piece, is trying to figure out how are you going to pay for it. I mean, these towns and cities that we're working in are typically, outstate rural communities that have a limited population, limited checkbooks, limited experience and resources, and all of a sudden they're supposed to figure out how am I going to fund a $1 million and millions dollar project successfully. So that's where we come into the mix. In focusing on the whole community, we're able to find funding partners typically that are going to help the whole community rather than just pieces. First, identify their needs, then figure out, okay, what funding sources might apply, and then how do we bring the two together to find the best package for the city.
My role at Bollig is to really assist communities in acquiring funding for their projects, and then also helping them administer the funds once we've been able to secure the funding for their projects to move forward. When a project is in those big early stages, we start trying to figure out at this point in time, how are we going to pay for this project? We start brainstorming, looking at every single funding opportunity out there, and we start matching it with those community needs and the availability of things.
The different funding agencies that are out there, they all have their own specific requirements on what they fund and what they don't fund. It's very important that we tell their story and the needs that they have that align with those funding agency requirements. And so we're often adding 5 to 7 different funding sources for any different client because they each have different requirements. Once one of the 7 say, hey, yeah, this looks like it could align, it tends to be a magnet and pull the other funding into the picture. And then we got to overlap those requirements in there.
It is constantly changing. There's new money coming to the table, a ton of new requirements that exist today that didn't even exist a couple of years ago. And so to think that a city clerk is in a position to not only do their regular jobs, now on top of it, they're supposed to try to figure out how do you fill out a grant application that's 20 pages long? How do I administer wage compliance things? I mean, how do you do all those things? That's where Bollig can step in to bridge that gap and work as a partner. We can provide that support to them and move the project along in the way it needs to be.
We are in the middle of a $11 million project. So this was one of our projects that we did. Bollig was able to help us, work with us on applying for many different grants. We have a lot of funding sources, so trying to keep them all separate and try to work through all them, especially I've never done anything like that before. So the funding team and Brian have helped me a lot to be able to start with them and to follow through and get each pay application done.
Because these projects are so massive, we know that it takes more than some of the funding sources that have typically been around. We have really worked in a different route by working with these cities to approach their state and federal legislators and representatives and senators.
I know that I have Brian and everyone else at Bollig on my side, so if I have a problem or something, I can go to them with any issues I have, and they will do whatever they can to get them taken care of.
At the end of the day, it's just a place for people to live and to grow and raise their families. They don't need that infrastructure project to be everything they've ever done in life. They need to be a part of what they do. And so that's what we try and do, is more holistic approach, is to look at the bigger picture and fit in where it makes sense, where it's sustainable for the community, and how do they move forward with their everyday goals.